Hi, today is Monday, February 20th, 2017, and this is a Sweet Speaks. And actually, I'm cooking a late dinner, but there are some things I need to address. So I'll have to do this at the same time as I'm making my dinner, because Mondays is usually a busy day for me. But you know, some things you just have to address. So, without further ado, let's get to it. A lot of liberals, left liberals, I guess I should call them, but you know, liberals in the English language today means leftists, basically. One or another kind of socialist. It even means this in Swedish these days. It used to mean some kind of libertarian, but these days it just means the same thing as it does in American English. I digress. Anyway, liberals are going crazy about President Trump's comments on Sweden. I've already commented on this in an early video, but I guess I have to do it again. And they just won't give up with their nothing happened in Sweden Friday night. Yes, in a literal interpretation of what President Trump said, dear liberals, you seem to be right. Nothing special happened in Sweden on Friday night. Sweden was still the rape capital of the West, and Malmö, the third largest city in Sweden, was still the second most crime-ridden city in Europe. Copenhagen, in Denmark, which you could basically swim from Malmö to Copenhagen, twice the size of Malmö, is safer. People in Copenhagen don't want to go to Malmö. Well, they go there to buy cheap stuff, but they don't go to areas in Malmö that are unsafe. And I remember a news story about a school in Denmark where the kids were sending letters to children in a school in Malmö. And then they were going to send these kids to visit Malmö. The parents refused to send them there. I understand them. I wouldn't have done that either. I wouldn't let my children, if I had any, go to Malmö. And this is nothing special. Nothing special happened in Sweden. That's just the way things are. Mr. John Oliver, who is a British comedian and political commentator. How come all the comedians are political commentators these days? Anyway, there's a video with him on Facebook, on YouTube. I guess it's from a show he's doing, where he, according to the video, he destroyed Trump for inventing Swedish terrorist attacks. No, he didn't destroy anything. Maybe he thought he did, but he didn't. And we'll get back to this. I will, of course, include a link in the box below to that video, so you can look at the madness. And I will include links to everything that's relevant right now. Alexander Stubb, who is Finland's former prime minister and a member of Finland's so-called conservative party, the National Coalition Party, wrote on Twitter, quote, "Dear real Donald Trump, Sweden is immigration-friendly, international and liberal, one of the most prosperous, richest, safest places on earth," end quote. Mr. Stubb has obviously not been to any of the no-go zones in Sweden. Not the ones in Malmö, in Gothenburg, in Stockholm, in Uppsala, and lots of other cities in Sweden. Not just the big ones, even smaller cities. Or they do not fit his liberal globalist worldview. They don't fit his narrative. And, I mean, yeah, he says Sweden is immigration friendly. To which immigrants? To the immigrants like my grandparents who came from Finland in the 1950s and who worked their way up in Sweden? They aren't alive anymore, and sadly. But in one way, I'm happy they don't have to see what happened to Sweden. They got to see enough. My Finland-born grandmother would say that the Swedes are crazy. And it's difficult to argue against that. Actually, she was right. And President Trump, he wrote on Twitter, quote, "My statement as to what's happening in Sweden was in reference to a story that was broadcast on Fox News concerning immigrants and Sweden." I mean, that should really be enough. This should be obvious. Anyone with half a brain understood this if they wanted to understand. The thing is, I don't think the liberals want to understand. They want to misunderstand. Pardon me. Because even if nothing special happened in Sweden on Friday night, Sweden was still a country in deep crisis created by insane migration policies. By Sweden bending over to Islam, because there are no other religions taking the same place in Sweden now. They are not bending over to Roman Catholics, to Hindus, to Buddhists, to Jews, to Sikhs, or by that way, to Anglicans like me. But I am happy, I live in Norway. We got our crazy globalists too. But right now, Sweden is the topic. And also I have to mention, Carl Bildt, the former Prime Minister of Sweden. He is also the former Foreign Secretary of Sweden. And he is a so-called conservative. And he is a globalist. He wondered on Twitter what President Trump had been smoking. I would like to know what Mr. Bildt has been smoking. Sweden is, if you didn't know, and I will post links where you can dig into this yourselves. It's a warning example to the entire Western world. Sweden shows what happens when political correctness turns into the state religion. Actually, I would like to quote a part from a book I own. One moment. Anyone who understands Scandinavian languages should read this book. Mikael Jalving's book, Absolut Sverige, which means Absolute Sweden. You see, now you see it better. The Danish title is En Reise i Tavsiden Rige, which means a journey in the silent realm. That's really what Sweden is. And let's see. Yes. He quotes a Swedish writer, Herman Lindqvist. Herman Lindqvist was happy enough to grow up in Finland because his father was a diplomat there, and he has lived most of his life outside Sweden. I think I'm starting to see a pattern here. People who are outside the Swedish brainwash think for themselves, at least to a higher degree than the people that are within the Swedish opinion corridor and that are getting this Swedish brainwash all the time, that just refuse to see what's happening around them because it doesn't fit the narrative. Anyway, Lindqvist said, and he is quoted in Mr. Jalving's book, it's in Swedish and it's in Danish. You could get it in any of these two languages. He says, quote, there's always been a strong fundamentalist pattern in the Swedish culture. Before it was our priests who held the whip and made sure that everyone followed God's laws, the catechism, and the demands of the royal majesty, that means the government. Sinners were severely punished. And I have underlined what comes here. Today it's the Swedish journalists, not the Lutheran priests, that hold the whip, and God's laws has been replaced with what, for the time being, happens to be the politically correct opinions. End quote. Great book. Anyway, there's a lot to say about this. And I could go on forever, but right now, that's what I have to say about what's going on in Sweden, about nothing special in Sweden and so on. I will also include a link to my other video on the same topic. And, well, that's all I gotta say about this right now. If you like this channel, please like, please subscribe, please share my videos, and you could support my channel through Patreon or through PayPal, and I will include the necessary links for that. And now I have to look what's happening to my meal. Have a nice day.